Hi everybody, welcome back to Narc Shield. And this is a video that I wanted to do where I believe that it's talking about empathy and boundaries to some degree. And I had written something out and I wanted to read it because I do take notes sometimes about things that I'm thinking, or I don't know about you guys, if you leave like a pad by your bedside table, and if you dream and you get up and you write it down, or you think of something, you write it down. I tend to do that sometimes. So I actually text this one out, so it might not be like, I'm not like, a great writer or anything like that. I like to write, but I'm a terrible editor. I was horrible in English, but let's give it a roll. I want to read this to you guys because this is what I want to talk about tonight, and I hope that it helps and doesn't like tick everybody off, because I just, I don't know. I'm just trying to talk about maybe my own feelings and see if I make any sense or not. Okay, so everyone handles going through COVID-19 and everyday life stresses differently. It is possible you may, and also this can go with anything, because I'm going to actually talk about this and the election and just basically anything that you could be talking about. Okay. Everyday stresses differently. It is possible you may be projecting yourself onto others, expecting them to be like you. This is, my thing went away. This is a boundary buster if someone hasn't asked for your input on their life. What exactly are boundaries? You may not know, or you recognize your own and expect people to respect them, but don't realize you are a boundary buster when it comes to other people. Do you have empathy? Do you really care about other people and their feelings or their things, friends, and families? Or do you actually just care about your own? Are you someone who reacts immediately as feelings are facts for you, or do you take the time to think things over before pouncing? Do you think about what might be going on in someone else's life before you start throwing more expectations on a person? Empathy can be a part of our everyday interactions, and when thinking only of ourselves, it is easy to forget sometimes what other people's feelings are as well, or what they may be going through. And I guess I was writing that down like I was like half asleep or whatever, but because of so many things that I've noticed during this pandemic. And listen, I'm not a psychologist or anything, but I tend to be more that middle of the road person. And yes, I do tend to be more of the peacemaker, or I try to just stay out of things. And this has gone on for so long, and so many different things has happened during this pandemic, and social media has been, which has always been a great outlet, but a lot of people have depended on social media because they're not getting out as much. A lot of people are watching the news all the time because they're not getting out as much. People are working from home. So, social media and the news, they're able to see it a lot more than maybe they normally would if they were going outside and going to work, that kind of thing. I'm just throwing out some examples. And so you see people as time goes on. Well, some people in the beginning may have reacted, but you can see how people handle stress. And I definitely cannot stand stress, but it takes a whole lot for me before I would probably cry or get mad or lose it or whatever. Everybody's different. Some people pounce immediately and so on. So I noticed this, so we had the election, and of course, everybody had different opinions. I mean, our country was completely split with that. And in my profession, I don't talk about politics in my salon, and I do hair, so I don't talk about politics in my salon, and I rarely talk about religion other than to say that I'm a Christian, if I'm talking. But I try to be respectful of everybody and everybody's opinions and their thoughts. And I'm actually generally, I am curious about other people and just how they're feeling and what they're thinking and what they believe in. And on social media, they have different, on Facebook example, you can snooze people for 30 days. You can unfollow them without unfriending them. You can block them if you need to. There's all these different ways to kind of handle social media if it's triggering you in some way. And I noticed so many people getting amped up over the election and COVID. Everybody just had so many different ways that they were handling it. Sometimes, like with COVID, it might be that, oh, mask. And then the longer it went on, it's like, oh, forget it. I'm going to be like everybody else. And I just want to live my life and I'm going to do whatever I want. And then, you just kind of see where people are changing the way they think. And then of course, cognitive dissonance comes in because, it's like, we got to make that okay too, whatever it is to make it okay for us. So it was interesting to me to see that. And then during the election, I don't really like to hear a lot about election stuff because people tend to fight. And I don't like to see people fight and see relationships torn apart over that. And so I know, like, my family is divided. There's people, that are Republicans, and then there are people that are Democrats. And so it seems like every election, or at least the last two anyway, there's been a lot of stuff going on there. And sometimes I've even worried because people do get mad sometimes. And if you don't believe in what they believe in. And so I tend to snooze people for 30 days. I'm sure they snooze me too, and that's okay too. If somebody didn't want to hear about, I post my stuff about narcissism, and I try to bring awareness, and if they don't want to see it and they're sick of seeing my stuff or whatever, I'm sure they snooze me too. But we have the right to do that and do what's comfortable for us. And I was noticing that there were people really getting heated over their different beliefs. And I was like, it's like people are trying to force their beliefs onto somebody else. And if that person doesn't believe what they believe, then I was seeing what is called black and white thinking, which is basically good or bad. So you either believe what I say, and if you don't, then you're bad. And if you believe what I say and you agree with me, then you're good. And it was like constantly, I was seeing it even within my family. And I was like, wow, this is really toxic and unhealthy. And I was thinking, I guess, the best way to deal with that would be that they don't talk about politics together. But what was happening, I'll use the example of my family. What was happening is it was being brought to me, or it was even like, because I love everybody, whether they're Republican or Democrat, whatever they believe with COVID, I still love these people. And so I didn't really want to hear the bad talk. I might agree, in my mind, I might be like, yeah, I get it. I mean, I get why you might be upset here or there, or, I'm interested in hearing what you have to say if it doesn't go on and on and on and affect me in a negative way. But where it would negatively affect me is when I could see that relationships were being broken down, and I didn't want to pick sides. And it kept coming to me. And so, I'm not going to say who it was or whatever. They know who they are. But it was like some of them were trying to force it, and were so, I found it interesting because you hear people, they talk about you're so far left or you're so far right, and they never see, or I don't want to say never, but a lot of times I don't think some of the people that were doing that could see. They might say, oh yeah, you're so far right that you can't see this, or you're so far left you can't see this. And whichever one that they are, they can't see that they're being the extremist. You know what I mean? So they're calling somebody an extremist, or they're calling somebody you are being brainwashed or whatever, but they can't see how it's affecting them in a negative way, and how they're acting out, and it's negative. It's coming across negative, and how that might affect other people. And I get it, social media is a platform, and I think it can be a great thing, but I also think it can be negative as well. And so we do have the right to create boundaries around our own social media platforms. And one of the things that I noticed with this particular incident was there were some boundaries that were made, and it was like, hey, look, this really bothers me when you talk like this on my page, and I don't want to have to silence you so much because some of the things, I really want to hear your opinions, but when you come out attacking, I don't really like that. So if you're feeling that way, I would rather you come at me, or not really come at me, but talk to me in a respectful manner through Messenger, or call me or text me, and then let us work it out that way. And that way it's not in front of everybody. So the boundary was created. And so I was like, oh, okay. So the boundary's created. And I thought that was a great solution. And, but the boundary kept being crossed. And the person, maybe even people that kept crossing the boundaries, kept not taking responsibility and accountability for the fact that they were crossing the boundary that was made, and was deflecting, blame shifting, and making excuses for why they could or felt entitled to cross that boundary. And I thought, wow, this is really, and I'm not saying these people are narcissists, but it is, we all have traits. And so you kind of can see the dynamic in when people are trying to create boundaries. And when we're passionate about things, sometimes we can forget our manners. This is, I guess, is the way I want to say it. But it's great lessons, in my opinion, for us to learn how to create our boundaries. And when you're not used to creating boundaries, or at least holding those boundaries, when you start to hold them, people who are used to being able to walk over your boundaries, they don't like it, and it rubs them the wrong way, and they can see you as bad. And, like you're a bitch or something. Or, if you're a guy, what the other word. But it's like everybody has their feelings, and not everybody's always going to agree, especially when it comes to politics and religion and things like that. And so, when people can kind of lose themselves. And I was seeing this when it came to the election. We all can probably say that. I'm sure if you were watching, and it's disappointing because you want to see people, unite and love each other and be able to work together, because what happens is the messages that could be great messages, where I would be like, wow, that was a great debate, is lost in the fighting, because all you're focusing on is, look how they're acting. Like, this is so ridiculous. And when it's family or friends, you think, gosh, I can't believe that they're willing to let their relationships and their families, or even their friendships, break up over something like this. And they can't just agree to disagree, or just to appreciate that they're different people, and that, people do change in time. And maybe one day they might believe, whatever it, grow into whatever it is that you believe in, and vice versa. Who knows? But it's just a shame. And so it kept coming to me and kept coming to me and kept coming to me. And I was trying to find a solution. And what I got when I was doing that in a caring way, trying to hold, family together and, be the voice of reason, when that happens, you end up being attacked. And so I was attacked. Someone said something about, basically me and being a parent, and how I parent. And my children are grown. I have grown children. One's 31, going on 31, and one's going on 26. And I would die if I was like off. But they're grown. They have their own minds. I don't always agree with them. I don't always agree with my family, period. But I just appreciate I try to appreciate where they're coming from. And if I don't agree, I usually just try not to get into it with them too much because I don't want to fight. And I know where the lines can be crossed, and it's like I decide that the relationship is more important than me forcing my beliefs onto someone else. So it would be like, an example would be, I talk about narcissistic abuse. So if I went to someone's page and I decided, you know what, this looks like narcissistic abuse, and I decided to talk about narcissistic abuse and push that on their page, I'm sure they wouldn't feel they would feel violated in some ways. They would feel attacked. And so and then everybody else can see it that is, on their thing. And who knows, maybe somebody might agree. There are a lot of people that see what we post and they say nothing and may have opinions about it. And people can decide about your character and decide, again, it's like this, you're either good or you're bad. And they get this perception of you that might not really be your everyday thing, but this is just something where you got all passionate about or whatever. But it kind of shows how your family dynamic is, or your dynamic with your friends are, or the way that you handle conflict. It can show up in places like social media, and everybody in the world is able to see it. And it can be quite disheartening, especially if you're the person who just wants everybody to be okay. And so one of the things that I also wanted to say about that is that people can begin to feel isolated in those situations. And so it's like, you can even see triangulation where you feel like they're ganging up on one another, and there's all this triggering going on, and each side feels isolated because they can't talk about their true feelings and how they really feel without it being conflict. And who really wants to be around and hang out with people or really talk to people when it continues to go like that? Well, some people like conflict and they just want to go in, and that would be a bully, somebody who just bullies and just can never just let it go. But I understand. I'm like, okay, well, I could see why you would feel isolated, but nobody's going to want to hang out when you've said some pretty harsh things. And I on social media, when I see these kind of fights going on, I'm not just talking about my family and stuff, but it's funny because it's not really funny, but I'll see like the personal attacking go from both sides. But when it's talked about, it's as if, at least I know a couple of people did this, where they could only see where they were being attacked. They could not for the life of them see that they came out with gloves on and attacked right out the gate time and time and time again. And then eventually you poke the bear, 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 poke the bear, poke the bear, and it gets annoying. And then somebody says, in a meaner way, listen, obviously when I was creating the boundaries this way and kept being nice and kept being nice and kept being nice and kept being nice, I'm sick of it now. And and then they come out and they show an ugly side. And I was like, and I saw as both sides being bad. But it's like, well, so the relationships are ruined, and you hear things like, you're dead to me and all of that. And, the relationship was ruined, where if people would have respected the boundaries from the very beginning, that would have never happened. And it's just kind of sad. And we see this a lot when it comes to like politics, or even with this COVID stuff and the pandemic, or just normal family everyday situations, or even at work, or just everyday life stuff. So I just kind of used those as a small example, but it can be so disappointing. And so it's like, How do we handle conflict? How do you handle conflict? What triggers you, and what kind of coping skills do you have to kind of get through it? A lot of people talk about mindfulness, and that was another thing too. I noticed, I forgot where this, somebody was talking about mindfulness. I forgot who that was. Oh, I know. Somebody was telling me a story about mindfulness, because I do hair, so people talk to me in my chair. I hear all kinds of stories. And so they're telling me this story, and this person is like lecturing them on being mindful, and yet this person wasn't being mindful, which was projecting. So it was like projecting all that icky onto somebody else and judging somebody else without being able to self-reflect and see what's going on and what they're doing. And so sometimes egos can just get in the way, and it clouds all judgment, and the next thing you know, everybody's fighting, and it can be years before people are talking, months, whatever, if they ever talk again, and families are separated and apart more than you would ever see. So when this happens in my family, I completely distance myself. I try to tell them, I'm just using my family as an example, so I'm sorry to my family. But when this happens with any of us, I just decide that it's best to, if you can't create the boundary, and I'll say, like, this is my boundary, and they can say what their boundary is. But if it keeps getting crossed, this is what I'm going to do. And I'm going to distance myself for a while, because I want to protect myself. Because a lot of times, I even noticed this, like with the election, people, if they are talking about it and they're upset, even if they don't know who you're voting for one way or the other, if you're not shaking your head, or you're not agreeing, or you don't really want to partake, emotions can get ramped up, and the next thing you know, you're being yelled at, and things are happening towards you, and you're feeling completely uncomfortable, and that kind of thing. That's just an example, but it can happen with anything. And so it's like, the boundary would be, okay, if you treat me in a way that's uncomfortable, or you continue to do something that makes me uncomfortable, I'm not going to be around, so you're not going to see me as much. Or it could be like with COVID-19, you don't like to wear a mask, and you're around a lot more people than I'm comfortable with. So I feel like this in some ways. I do hair, and I do wear a mask and stuff like that. But even that, it's rampant right now. Lots of people are getting it, and they have been, but we're seeing it a whole lot right now, in my state anyway. Like, it's just going up. The numbers are going up again. And so some people would be like, well, I don't mind being around 20, 30 people or 15 people, or I've been hanging out with these same people, and we don't wear masks around each other, but who are the people that they're hanging around when they're not with? So it doesn't make me feel comfortable. So I might not go to certain things. I might not go to their house, or I might not go to their party, or I might not go to an event, because I don't know where all those people have been. And I have a family member that has cancer, and, all other reasons, and I don't want to get sick, right? So that's just how I feel. So my boundary would just be, well, you know what? I'm just going to stay away. I still want you guys to have fun. It's your life. You can choose how you guys handle. People can make choices and do what they want to do. They're going to. People are going to, we've seen that. But I make the choice. And it's funny, because I've heard things like, what, are you scared of COVID? And it's like, well, I don't really want to get COVID, and I'm scared I'll give it to somebody else. And that's a way to make somebody feel kind of shamed, and like I'm supposed to feel guilty. And I had somebody shaming me, saying, I'm just using this as an example, because you guys might be going through some of this, right? Some of you might not, but if you are, then you'll recognize some of this. So COVID has been around almost a year. It's coming up on a year. And it's kind of a shame. I haven't seen a lot of people. I haven't been able to do a lot of the things that I normally would do. But I had somebody who was disappointed because they haven't seen me and haven't talked to me. Actually, I feel like this is always going on. And I do try to keep up. But When you are somebody who is a giver, and you will try to make plans, or you'll try to be you might be the one that calls all the time or texts all the time, and then eventually, when you're not really hearing back, you kind of back off and you kind of quit or whatever. At least, like I'll get like that, and but then when you do and you start doing that, then somebody might be feeling neglected because they're used to you always doing that. And then now you're not. And so they might feel neglected. And the next thing you know, they're feeling whatever is going on inside of them, maybe abandoned, or they're being triggered in some reason, and can project some things onto you. And I know for me, like I'll listen to some of that for a little bit. And I think to myself, this is really more about what's going on inside of you. Because if you really go back and look, or you really paid attention, you would see that I had done this, that, or the other, or that we're just in a pandemic. And a lot of us are going through this, and we all make choices that is what is comfortable for us. So what's comfortable for one person may not be for the other person. So one person might be like, I'm happy to see people all the time, or, I just hang out with this amount of people. But, I know that I do hair. I see people. I mean, I try not to see a ton of people in a day anymore. And I definitely am disinfecting all the time. I'm wearing a mask. I'm trying to do all the right things. But at the same time, I would feel so guilty if I gave COVID to somebody. So, and I definitely don't want it. Can I just tell you, I can't stand being sick, period. I don't like having a cold. I don't like having the flu. I definitely don't want COVID. So I'm just one of those people. And I also have a family member that has cancer, and then another family, lots of them that just, have lower immune systems and stuff like that. Doesn't matter. I shouldn't have to explain myself. You make the decision for yourself, and you shouldn't have to be shamed. And so when that happens, so something like, what, are you scared of COVID? That would be called gaslighting. And so you're feeling like it would make you second guess your judgment. Like, you would be like, well, I guess everybody else is like, they're not really, maybe I am the weird one. No, you do what's comfortable for you. Your feelings are just as important as that person's feelings. And that's where a lot of times it's like the empathy comes in. It's like, look, I appreciate that that's how you feel. And I appreciate that you might even care and might want to do this. But I would like to think that you would appreciate how I feel and where I'm coming from too, and the feelings that I have. And we can still love each other. And I'll use, I'm going to continue on with the COVID thing. So maybe we can see each other through a Zoom or FaceTime or something like that. But I'm just trying to throw out a couple of examples, but sometimes it's like, I was thinking about the whole empathy thing, where a lot of us think we have empathy, but we can forget sometimes to have it because we can be so into what's going on with us. And I think the pandemic and election is great examples of how we can get so into our own feelings that we sometimes forget what might be going on in somebody else's life, and why they maybe make some of the decisions that they do, and why certain things are more important, even when it comes to the election and choosing who they are choosing. Sometimes, people don't like either or. So it's just, are your friendships and your family more important than being right? And can you have empathy for the other person, and how it might be affecting, how pushing your beliefs onto someone else might be affecting your family and other people? Let's just use the example of when you're posting onto someone else's social media page. Granted, yes, it is open, and we can snooze, and we can mute, and some people don't want to do that. I know one of my family members was like, well, we really didn't want to do that because I didn't want them to think I didn't like them, and I was like, well, no, it's just a boundary. So they tried it a different way and was like, can we do it privately outside of the thing, because I don't really want other people to see the fighting going back and forth. and it ended up escalating eventually. It took months and months and months, and the boundaries just kept getting crossed, and that it just escalated to a really bad place. And the bad thing about it is now nobody wants to be around each other. And I, for one, throw in the white flag, but I'm going to hang out on my own because I don't want to get all tossed up in the middle of that. I said my piece about how I'd rather everybody love each other and just appreciate each other's differences, and let's just try not to fight about it. And if not, I'm going to kind of hang out on my own. And so, but you never really know, like when you're pushing, or if you are someone or have had someone doing it, you're pushing whatever that belief is. It could be anything onto someone else. It's like, well, did you stop to think about, instead of judging, stop to think about what's going on with somebody and what their life experiences are or have been, and why they may have come to the decisions that they did to create the boundaries that they do to be healthy for themselves. So when you create boundaries, you're doing it for a reason to protect yourself, and when other people do. So we're supposed to respect it. But there are those that create strong boundaries. Like I had someone they were messaging. I messaged them, and then they messaged me back, and I created a boundary. And I was trying to speak in a loving way, but they didn't like it, and they saw it as a lecture. They couldn't, but when they came back at me, it was very combative. It was not coming from a loving space. It was very judgmental. It was accusing me of things, and it was devaluing me and putting me down. And I don't think they could recognize it. They needed to be right. And in doing so and putting me down, now granted, I love this person. So, I don't know if they even watch my videos, but whatever, because we've already had the conversation. But it's like they didn't have empathy for how that might be making me feel the way they were treating me. They didn't have empathy for what might be going on within the situation behind that was going on there, what I was going through and how it was affecting me, the dynamic that was going on. They didn't care. They didn't ask. They didn't care. They just kept pushing. And it was like they wanted to force this belief onto me as well. And I look at all of it, and I was like, everybody over there is just drinking the Kool-Aid, and I'm not going to drink the Kool-Aid on either side. So it was like, but if had I, granted, my feelings could have been really hurt, and I could have taken it super personally, but I instead was like, this is something more, something deeper going on inside of them. And I think in situations like that, a lot of people, they lose control, and they're just trying to grapple and get control in some way. I don't really, I use my life sometimes as an example, and I would go more into that, but I don't think that I should. I don't, it's just an example. But personal relationships, interpersonal relationships, so talking about narcissism or, narcissism, they have people like that. They'll have, not that these people were narcissists, they just might have narcissistic traits coming out or whatever. We all do have them sometimes, but narcissist, they have difficulties in interpersonal relationships because they don't even recognize that they are being offensive sometimes, and can say things that are just kind of off the wall. They believe in their reality, and sometimes their reality isn't like what everybody else's reality is, and those people can be delusional and want you to buy into that delusion. And if you are holding your boundaries, they are going to push at that, and that is being highly narcissistic, and a narcissistic trait for sure. And you just got to keep holding your boundaries and try to be as respectful as you possibly can. And if somebody else wants to be disrespectful, that's on them. You don't have to let it really get at you. I just look at it like, it's kind of funny. It's like, I'm just like, and these days, once upon a time, I might have cried, kicked, and screamed about it and been like, how dare you, like, not, who knows, and just gotten into the whole chaotic part of it. And it's like, really right now, I'm just getting a text that's like, so anyway, I wanted to get these videos out. I wanted to talk about this one a little bit because empathy right now, it would be, this just made me think of it just from that text right there, is sometimes just because, this would be an example, just because somebody else isn't busy doesn't mean that somebody else isn't busy, or just because somebody else isn't sleeping and doesn't mean that somebody else is sleeping, and doesn't mean that somebody else or somebody's working and not working. And then you're expecting, that's part of our culture today though, is where people think that expectations are high, and it's like, right now, I want everything right now. And you can totally be crossing boundaries. You can totally be making people uncomfortable. You can totally be judging people when you don't really know what's going on. A lot of people take things personally, and narcissistic people will do that. A lot of people can do that. Even, I guess, codependents too will take something personal when it has absolutely nothing to do with them on a personal level. It might just be that if it was me, and let's just say, like right now, I'm really busy doing these videos, and somebody is question marking me because they want me to respond to them right away, and I've got something else going on. But they're not thinking about that I have something else going on. They're expecting me to respond right away because that's what they want. And that can make somebody really uncomfortable. And it's a sense of entitlement. And that is something that a lot of people deal with on a daily basis. And so, anyway, these are just examples. Doesn't mean that everybody is a narcissist. We all see narcissistic traits coming out. We've probably all seen them, especially during the pandemic and this election. But it is great to give examples so that we can be aware. And if you're seeing it all the time within somebody, and it's constant and it's chaotic and drama all of the time, and it's constantly being brought to you and making you feel uncomfortable, that's your alarm system, and you have the right to take care of yourself and to create boundaries around it. And if that means that you don't want to hang out with those people, that's your choice. That's your choice. Or it's your choice to mute people. It's your choice if you want to block people. It doesn't matter if they want to call you immature for blocking them. You have the right to do that. That's why it's there. It's there to protect you. And not everybody's always going to agree. So until next time, I hope to see you again. Please like, share, and subscribe to my channel. And if you ever want me to talk about something, please feel free to comment in the comment section. And just be respectful and nice, and I will probably respond to you. If you're not respectful, I might not. I might block you, but hopefully that's not the case. I usually have really nice people on this channel and don't have to worry about anything like that. And I do appreciate you. Thank you so much for being here. You are not alone, and we are all in this together. See you next time. Bye.